Hi guys, James at Rampant Lion Reviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one, we are going to head down to England once again and we're going to have a look at another collaboration beer. Now, both of the breweries involved in this one today have featured on the channel before. I've had some really nice beers from both of them over the years, in fact, and I would say that this one that we're looking at today is a style that we know both of these breweries can do very, very well. So I have to say, I'm quite curious to see what happens when they put their heads together. Hopefully this is another good beer, hopefully it makes for an interesting review, and I hope that you guys enjoy my take on this one as well. So let's see how we get on. For this review then, for the home side of things, we are going to head to Leeds in Yorkshire in the north of England, and we're going to have a look at another beer from North Brewing Company. So this particular beer is called the Abstract Lens. It comes in at 8% ABV, and this is another New England Hazy, Imperial Double, whatever you want to call it, IPA, and it's brewed in collaboration with Alpha Delta Brewing Company, who come from Newburn near Newcastle upon Tyne in the northeast of England. So yeah, we've had New England IPAs from both of these breweries, of course. They are both very well respected English breweries, but North Brewing, I think, are the ones who are, you know, really well renowned in this particular style. But we've had a few different styles from Alpha Delta before and they've always been pretty good. But this beer is rather widely available. This is a Tesco beer. I bought this at my local Tesco in Alloa and I think I paid about, you know, £3.50 or something like that for this one. So to translate that into different currencies, that's going to be somewhere in the region of like €4, 40 Swedish kroner, and I guess maybe like, what's that, about $5 American for the can. So for what it is, an 8% New England Hazy double IPA, I think that is pretty good going, to be honest with you, and we know that it's done by two very good breweries, and I've heard that it's a solid beer. So yeah, let's get cracking with this then and see how we go. Curious to see what this has in store for us. So, as always with my reviews then, I'll tell you a little bit about both the breweries involved here before we taste the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting, just fast forward. All the usual links are in the video description below. That's the brewery websites, the link to my other reviews that I've done, both from North Brewing Company and from Alpha Delta Brewing. They will add hopefully more videos to both of those lists at some point in the near future, but there's all the usual social media down there. If you want to see more reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The whole channel, of course, has a geography-based tagging system, so you can go into the home page and search for beer based on country, city, state, county, province, prefecture, whatever it is you happen to be interested in. Do check out the playlist of beers from different countries. There is one there for all the English beers that I've reviewed for you. That's being added to whenever I get the opportunity, but fairly regularly, since I am at home in the motherland of Scotland, and we do get a fairly decent selection of English beers up here. And as always, please do get in touch and let me know some of the other beers and breweries that you guys would like to see me review. It's always great to hear from you guys that are watching the videos, and the support that you show the channel is hugely appreciated. So anyway, on to my brewery notes then, to tell you a little bit about North Brewing Company to start off with then, since these guys are the home brewery in this case. So North Brewing Company, as I've mentioned to you already, are based in Leeds in Yorkshire in the north of England, and they were founded by John Gingell and Christian Townsley, who owned the North Beer Bar, which opened back in 1997. Today they operate 6 venues around the city, and quite a lot of them do have a good amount of craft beer, which is understandable. And Yorkshire, of course, is a little bit unique in England because it's had a very long heritage when it comes to craft beer. The two men to speak to about that, of course, would be Stuart Pickard of Gingerly Ale Trail and Rob Derbyshire of Hop Scene. So they're the ones to message about that because they'll know more than me. But apparently the North Bar used to work quite closely with the likes of James Clay and Vertical Drinks to help promote craft beer throughout Yorkshire. And the original brewery was located in the Taverners Walk Industrial Estate. It has a 200-person tap room and a 15 BBL brew kit. And the original brewers were Seb Brink, who used to work for Golden Owl, and Darius Darwell, who was working for Bristol Beer Factory. But these days it's Seb that is the head brewer, and they've got a fairly large brew team as well. But they now have a tap room in Sovereign Square in Leeds, and they've recently opened a new brewery called Springwell, which has 21,000 square feet of space, and this will take their brewing capacity up to 16,000 hectolitres of beer per year when it's at full operations, and it'll also host a 500-person tap room. But as of October 2021, when I'm filming this review for you, these guys have produced around 215 different beers according to Untappd, and that number will no doubt increase over the next little while. North Brewing Company, of course, are very well renowned, pardon me, particularly for their New England Hazy IPAs, but the other styles I've had from them have also been pretty damn solid actually. But this is definitely one of the breweries that I want to hit up on my England tour, which hopefully can happen at some stage next year. But if you haven't tried some of the North Brewing Company beers, I highly recommend that you do. The last 3 or 4 that I've reviewed have all been the kind of supermarket ones, so I do need to try and order a few from the brewery directly, which are their more kind of crazy ones if you like. But yeah, this is definitely a brewery that you want to check out if you get the chance. So yeah, that's everything I need to tell you, or I can tell you, I should say, about North Brewing Company. If you want to learn more, you can check out the brewery website, follow them on Facebook and Instagram to keep up to date with all the latest goings on, and you can check out the Rate Beer, Untappd and Beer Advocate pages to learn a little bit more about all the different beers that these guys have done. So yeah, let's go on to the away side of things then, and we're going to head north to do that, so to Newcastle upon Tyne. So Alpha Delta Brewing Company was founded back in 2019 by Ross Holland, who along with his father Steve had previously founded Box Social Brewing back in 2015. So Box Social Brewing are still operating, and both of these companies are based in the village of Newburn near Newcastle upon Tyne in the very northeast of England. But Ross apparently got into brewing during a trip to Paris, where he found a brew pub, and he was just fascinated by how you could watch the whole process of brewing the beer while drinking the beers in-house. So the name Box Social was taken from the Victorian times, and essentially these people were middle-class people who had very opportunities to socialise, so they came up with the solution of hosting various different events in their own homes to get around that. But the whole idea behind the name and the company was to get people to socialise through craft beer. So when he started home brewing and then turned professional, he just went with that, and it worked out quite well for him. But they started off with a very small 6-barrel brew kit, but then when they moved to a new premises in 2019, and this had a larger 15-barrel brewery, and it was at this point that they launched the Alpha Delta Brewing brand. And apparently the idea behind Alpha Delta Brewing is to brew very, very big flavour beers. And if you look at what's been released under Alpha Delta, most of them tend to be the kind of New England Hazy IPAs. There's a good few sours in there, and there's also been quite a few Imperial Stouts as well from what I've seen, and they are worth checking out actually. But as of October 2021, when I'm filming this review for you, these guys have produced 65 different kinds of beer under the Alpha Delta brand, and about 30 different beers under the Box Social brand. So yeah, another well-respected brewery, and I would say they've become more well-known since they've done the Alpha Delta brand as well. But yeah, that's all I can really tell you about Alpha Delta Brewing, and I guess Box Social as well. If you want to learn a little bit more about that company, you can check out the brewery website once again. You can follow them on Facebook and Instagram to keep up to date with all the latest goings on, and you can of course check out the Rate Beer, Untappd and Beer Advocate pages to learn a little bit more about all the different beers that these guys have done. So yeah, that is it for Alpha Delta and for the overall brewery history section of the video. So let's get on and have a look at the beer itself. So I'll just let you have a little look at the artwork on this one before we open up. You can see it's a kind of combination of what we've had from North Brewing in the past and also from Alpha Delta, but it says on the back here, a smooth hazy double IPA featuring Idaho 7, Talus and Citra hops. Comes in at 8% ABV, of course. There you can see North Brewing's symbol there. I still love this camera, by the way, it's awesome. But there it is also on the back of the can, North Brewing. Alpha Delta, of course, there as well. But yeah, it looks very, very good. So yeah, 440ml can. I told you the price of it earlier, of course. Plain silver top on it, as you can see. But yeah, the hops in this one then, these are all American hops. Citra, of course, we know quite well, 14% alpha acid, big juicy mangoes, and quite a zesty, limey, citrusy component. Idaho 7 gives you a lot of these soft tropical fruits, you know, like mango, a little bit of mango, you know, sort of apricot, papayas, pineapple, these kind of things. And Talus is quite a new hop that's quite an interesting one. I believe that Talus is actually derived from Sabro, but it gives you this lovely, very pink grapefruity sort of thing. This really sharp, ripe grapefruity character. It's a lovely, lovely hop. So I have to say, I'm curious to see how it turns out in this one, because I haven't had it too often. I think I've only had it like, you know, 2 or 3 times, something like that. But yeah, to get a collaboration IPA from these two breweries, I think should be a pretty nice way to look at it again. But yeah, 8% New England double IPA, this one. Let's get it out into the glass and see how we go. The abstract lens should be good. So yeah, there we go. So let's get this guy out and into the glass then. I'm very curious about this. Oh, quite a big head on that. I think we'll need to just be a bit calmer with it, but that'll do for the moment. We'll pour the rest in a wee bitty later on. So, as you can see, this is quite an interesting looking beer, I have to say. So you can see that it's poured with about a 2-finger frothy, I would say slightly creamy coloured head there. Just bring that in so the camera will let you see. That is quite a nice kind of creamy coloured head. You can see there's a mixture of bumpy and frothy kind of bubbles in that one, but I did pour it fairly aggressively, to be honest with you. So yeah, that's probably my bad, but it lets you see the head before it disappears, and that will go down by the time we end up actually tasting the beer. But yeah, when we shine the light through this beer, it's got a lovely, very kind of rich, kind of dark yellow colour to it, I would say. There's 1 or 2 big bubbles sticking towards the side of the glass, a few little ones going up towards the bottom of the head there. Overall, it looks pretty decent. Now remember, the colour of your beer depends on the different types of malts that you use. This determines the magnitude of the colour. The length of your wort boil is also going to play a role. The longer you boil the wort, the more the sugar's caramelised, thus you get a darker colour of beer. And when it comes to a New England IPA like this, it tends to be a 70 to 90 minute boil. But yeah, I like comparing these to the different fruit juices because that's just what their appearance reminds me of. And this one is kind of akin to like a mango juice, something like that. A nice kind of deep yellow colour. But yeah, it should be very, very, very nice. So this looks pretty solid, I have to say, in terms of what you would expect of a New England IPA. But you can see it has got a certain degree of haze to it. So remember, the haze depends on the oak content, wheat content and the yeast. It varies from brewery to brewery, recipe to recipe. For an 8% double IPA, this one isn't the soupiest and gloopiest that I've come across, but remember, we haven't poured all the beer into the glass yet, so that might change very slightly, but it's certainly got a fair level of haze for an 8%er, and you don't need to have, the thing doesn't need to be wholly opaque to be a good New England IPA. But it does need a fair wee bit of haze, I would say. But yeah, nothing too surprised about this beer in terms of its appearance. I think we can take a look at the aroma and see how we get on then. So let's go for it, see what we're getting out of this one. Now, I'm going to say straight away, the aroma of this beer isn't overly pungent. It really isn't overly massive, to be quite honest with you. But I think it comes across as being quite smooth, but also quite juicy and citrusy and zesty, to be honest with you. So that's kind of interesting. Now, as I've told you in previous New England reviews, and I repeat this quite a lot, I think there's 6 directions you can take a New England IPA. It can be sort of farmhousey and grainy. It can be farmhousey and yeasty. It can be rye leaning and grainy, wheaty and bitey, oaty and creamy, barley malt leaning and bready, or it can be quite sweet and brown sugary, and often they will display a few of these different characteristics. First off, this one strikes me as being quite barley malt leaning and bready. You do get a bit of oaty smoothness out of it, and there's maybe a wee bit of wheat, but I'd say it's more barley malt leaning and oaty. That's what I'm getting out of this one, to be honest with you. Maybe a bit of the yeast. Even if I take the aroma in quite deeply, it actually has quite a soft, juicy aroma, this one. Green component isn't too pungent either. So yeah, this strikes me as being a smooth, soft and juicy New England IPA. So yeah, that's the first impression of it. Let's try and break it down a wee bit and see how we go. So if we sugar the beer up a wee bit more, you can certainly smell with this one, it does have quite the bready backbone. So of course you're getting a wee bit of bread crust out of it. You can smell that. Soft, fluffy white bread. For sure, definitely you're getting a wee bit of that. You can smell a wee bit of the oat, but I think it takes a little bit of time to come out. The oaty character in this one comes across as being slightly dry, and you almost get a little bit of that sweetness out of it. And if you take the aroma in, if you take the aroma in really quite deeply, you certainly get a nice wee bit of a kind of wheaty bitiness out of it. So I do like how that goes together. So yeah, I like how that goes about its business in that regard. yeah, it's the backbone of this one is quite nice. The more that I smell of it as well, I do get a slight degree of sweetness out of it. Yeah, it has got a wee bit of that kind of Werther's Original butterscotchy, butter candy type thing to it. So there is a wee bit of that going on in this. And of course, when it's an 8%er, you would kind of expect a bit of that. You do, when it comes to the beers getting boozier and boozier, you do tend to get a little bit of brown sugar out of them, because that's a way to kind of cover up the boozy side of it a little bit. So yeah, there is a wee bit of that going on in this one for sure. But yeah, aroma wise, I think this is pretty nice actually. So yeah, little bit of sweetness in there, but otherwise quite bready. And the more that I smell of it, the more the wheaty component comes out. You do get a bit more of that kind of wheaty pungency to it, so that's interesting. Now I think we can leave the malty side of the beer and have a look at the hoppy side of it now. So on that hoppy side of things, I'd say it's quite, there is a wee bit of earthiness in there. This one does have quite a pungent green component to it though. You get quite a sort of spicy, bright floral aromaticity coming out of it. So I do like that. And there's also a good little bit of a kind of, you know, a good bit of a zesty kind of thing coming out of this one as well. So you get a nice big zesty, grassy component. And I think out of the hops, I think the Citra is most likely to give you the big zesty grassiness, and the floral aromaticity, the pungency of that, I think is most likely to come from the Talus. Idaho 7, I think it can give you a fair floral component, but it more gives you those really soft, fruity characters in my experience. So yeah, little tiny bit of earthiness, it's quite a bright and slightly spicy floral aromaticity, but also a big zesty grassiness. Let's look at the fruity component then, just to round off the aroma. Yeah, fruity side of the beer, you do get that big, sharp, bright grapefruity note out of this one, the pink grapefruit. It just smells, not sweeter, but a little bit more kind of floral or something like that. Talus always gives you that big, ripe, juicy, grapefruity character. It's just not quite as deep and pungent as you're going to get from, say, Chinook or something like that. Or Galaxy, you know, it's a bright, juicy, ripe grapefruit that you get out of this one. But underneath that, you can definitely smell it. That seems like the most kind of pungent note of the Talus. I don't get anything else that I could really associate with the Talus, to be honest with you. But underneath that, you can get the softer tropical notes right away. So you can smell the juicy mango from the Citra, of course. But that, I think, even takes a back seat to what's going on with the Idaho 7. So you get that lovely soft apricot-y note in there. And I think the softness of the mango, I think, is coming from the Idaho 7 as well. I'd be curious to know what the ratio of the hops in this one actually is, whether it's a 33 hop ratio or what. But yeah, remember the New England IPAs rely on late edition hops. So West Coast IPAs also have early edition hops, which are the things that give you the big dankness and bitterness. And then both types of IPA have the late edition hops, which are more flavour and aroma, and then but a little bit of bitterness. Then the dry hopping, of course, is completely flavour and aroma. And New England IPAs only usually have that. But yeah, the softness of the tropical fruits in this is very, very nice. So definitely juicy mango. You get a wee bit of papaya. I do get a wee bit of pineapple out of this as well, actually, for sure. But yeah, you get that big bright grapefruit behind it, which is kind of interesting. But I'm also getting a wee bit of, you know, that kind of sort of lemon limey note from the Citra, but I'm also getting some of the kind of gooseberry lychee sort of thing that you can get from Citra as well. So I think Citra is the one that's I think the Talus has the biggest pungency, but the Idaho 7 is the most dominant one in a sense, but then Citra is the one that's almost like holding everything together, which is kind of interesting. So yeah, this is a beer that does make you think a little bit, but a lot of soft tropical fruit in this one. This isn't really, it's got a wee bit of citrusy zestiness from the Citra, of course. This is the lemony limey notes, but other than that, it's quite a soft tropical leaning beer, this one, from the fruity side of things. So yeah, I think we can round off the aroma there. Let's just put the rest of this in the glass. Let's put the rest of it in the glass, set the can down again, And now we're ready to taste it. So yeah, this one is the Abstract Lens, an 8% New England Hazy Imperial Double, whatever you want to call it, IPA from North Brewing Company in Leeds in Yorkshire in collaboration with Alpha Delta, who are from near Newcastle in the northeast of England. Let's have a taste of this one then and see how we go. Curious about this beer. Slàinte, skål, cheers. Oh yeah, that's pretty solid, I have to say, once again. Now, I'm going to say first impression of this one is it's a really smooth, creamy and juicy leaning New England IPA. Is this the craziest New England IPA of any strength or whatever that you're going to get from North Brewing? I wouldn't say so. Alpha Delta, I can't quite remember the New Englands that I've had from them in the past. I think the last beers I've had from these guys was, I think it was a stout actually, was the last one I had from North Brewing. But is it a solid beer, and is it worth the value for you know, the money you'll pay for it in the supermarket? Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you can't really knock, what was it, £3.50, £4 for a New England double IPA. You can't knock that at all, to be honest with you, especially when you consider the two breweries involved. So yeah, and they're always releasing new stuff through the supermarkets as well, and you get to try different hops and so on. So value for money wise, that's pretty solid actually, and it's a nice drinkable beer. There's so many New England IPAs on the market these days, you can't really ask for much more than that, to be quite honest. Yeah, that's a good one. But like I say, first impression of it, smooth, oaty, creamy, and just juicy, fruity New England IPA. It's very nice in that sense. So let's try and break the flavour of this down for you and describe the beer properly. Straight away, across the middle and back third of your palate, you can feel a little bit of that bread crusty sort of thing. Absolutely, you can feel that. This one is in fairly decent condition, but I can feel the oats starting to kind of cream up and do that little porridgey thing. I'm not sure exactly when this beer was released, but I'm filming this review for you at the very end of October. Does it have a date on it? No, I can't really make it out. I think it says it was packaged the 31st of August 21, so it's only September, October, yeah, 2 months it's been in the can, so it's no bad. It isn't, it's not bad in fairness, so it's about 8 weeks, something like that, maybe 9. But yeah, it's in not too bad condition, but you can feel the oats starting to do that little bit of porridgey sort of thing. But like I say, backbone is the bread crust. You've got a really nice kind of smooth white bready character on top of that, and yeah, you can feel that's the barley malt, of course, but then on top of that you get the wheat kind of just thickening out. Let's focus on that middle third of the palate for the moment anyway. But yeah, bread crust, smooth white bread from the barley malt, you can feel the wheaty layer just thickening it out. Then down the middle line of your tongue, you get that nice smooth oaty layer. And like I say, you can feel the oats just kind of creaming up and giving you that slightly porridgey kind of thing to the beer. But you can feel them at the same time. You can feel a little bit of the sweeter side of the oat still there. Just, you know, the sweeter, drier side of the oat just spreads out towards the edge of the palate a little bit. So I like how that goes together. But yeah, I'd say it has got a really nice, smooth, oaty, creamy component to it, this beer. On top of that oaty layer, like I say, the oats kind of go down the middle line of your tongue. But in the middle of that, you can feel this little circle there. And that's where you get the kind of, that's where you start to get the Werther's Original butter candy sort of thing coming out of the beer, which is very nice. So yeah, some nice big Werther's Original butter candy type notes coming out of this one, and it gets a bit sweeter actually the further you go into the aftertaste. Now, I wouldn't describe this New England double as being one of the sweeter ones that I've come across, but it does have that wee bit of sweetness that lingers there, and it gives you get the oaty smoothness and the kind of butter candy sort of thing just lingering there the further into the aftertaste that you go. And maybe as you push out towards the extremities of the palate, you might get one or two little hints of like a McVitie's digestive biscuity sort of thing to the beer. So yeah, few wee things going on in this one that are quite interesting. But that's the middle third of your palate. I don't think there's too much else to say about that. So let's look at the back third of your palate then. So the border region between middle and back third of your palate, nice little bit of bready build up there. Again, a wee bit of a bread crust. But then when you go into the back third of your palate, you can feel underneath the bread crust is a little bit grainier. You can feel the barley malt there, that the bread again is a wee bit grainier, but then you get on top of that, you get the wheaty layer, and the wheat does have that wee bit kind of bitey, zippy character to it, which I really like. And then on top of all of that, you get that nice, kind of yeasty, you do get that nice yeasty, it's actually quite a dense, yeasty, doughy, bready kind of thing. You can feel that there. So when you start at the back of the palate on this one, you can feel the flavour's quite tall, but then it just condenses down a wee bit. Then as you go into the middle third of your palate, you can feel those flavours just squash together a little bit. So yeah, I like how this one, I do like how this one goes together. So yeah, the malty side of things in this, I think, are the malty side of things in this beer are very nice. The malty side of the beer is very nice. I would say brain's not working. But yeah, malty yeasty side of this beer I think is pretty damn solid. Let's focus on the hoppy part of the beer then. So back corners of the palate, you do definitely get a wee bit of earthiness there. That doesn't hang about for too long, but as you push further forward, you get a nice, quite deep floral aromatic note out of this one. I suspect that's the talus that's giving you that. All the other two hops are capable of giving you it, but it's almost got a bit more of a spicy character than I remember having from either Idaho 7 or Citra. So I do suspect that slightly spicy character is more attributed to talus, and I'm sure I remember reading that it's supposed to give you a bit of pine needle or something, so I wouldn't be surprised about that. But I find it quite a spicy floral aromatic sort of thing. Round the front curve of the palate though, there's a little bit of a lighter grassy sort of thing, and there is a wee bit of a kind of zesty character as well. So yeah, I like how that goes together in this beer in that sense. Green component is pretty nice, but the more I drink of it, you actually get a little bit of a kind of fresh, wet cut, a wet, freshly cut grass sort of thing too on the front curve of the tongue. So yeah, that is pretty interesting, I have to say. Yeah, I like that. So front third of your palate then, let's look at the fruity side of the beer. So border region between front and middle third of your palate, you get a nice kind of bread crusty, you do get a nice little bit of a bread crusty build up and things there. The base of that front third of your palate, of course, wee bit bread crusty, but more of a soft white bready note underneath. And then on top of all of that, you get that nice oily bubble where the juicy fruity esters just roll their way out of the beer. So let's focus on that. So yeah, on that fruity side of things then, at the back of that front third of your palate, there's definitely a wee bit of a kind of, there is a wee bit of that kind of, you do get a bit of that kind of more pungent, you get that kind of big pink grapefruity sort of thing, and you can feel it's like grapefruit. It's got a wee bit of the pungency of grapefruit, but it just feels that bit brighter and more juicy in a sense. So you do get some of that out of this beer, and it's a bit more pungent than the aroma actually would have you believe, which is interesting. But moving further forward from that, you start to get a wee bit, you do get a wee bit of a lighter passion fruit out of it, and then you start to get the juicier notes from the Citra and from the Idaho 7 as well. But I think in the flavour, the Idaho 7 takes a bit of a back seat. You're not getting as much softness out of Idaho 7 as you would normally. So yeah, I get quite a bit of mango. Then as you push further forward, there's a little bit of apricot in there, but not a lot, just it's quite minimal. Maybe a teeny bit of like, maybe a teeny little bit of a kind of pineapple note. And then as you push towards the front tip of the tongue, definitely a kind of big lemony, limey, zesty sort of thing. And the lemony, limey notes mix in with just the lemony, limey notes mix in with the kind of big zesty, grassy component of the beer. So again, I quite enjoy how that, I do quite enjoy how that side of the beer goes together, that big zesty, lemony, limey kind of thing. So yeah, it works. It really does work. It really does work quite well for sure in that sense. So the Citra and the Talus for me are taking the lead in this one, but the Idaho 7 I think is almost pushed into the background a little bit. You don't get too much of the softness and things, the apricots and the pineapples and stuff. You get a little bit of it in the aftertaste, but in the main body of the flavour, if we could say, it is more about the grapefruit, a bit of passion fruit, which will come from the Citra as well, then the big kind of zesty components. I'm not getting the kind of lychee gooseberry thing I was picking up in the Aroma either. But whatever I would say about that, it is quite it's quite a nice tasting beer for sure. I've just noticed it, I've got that little shape on the side of my glass that looks like a horse. That's cool. The other one looks a little bit, I don't know what that looks like, but yeah, this one looks like a horse, so that's cool. But yeah, for what you're getting here, a supermarket New England double IPA, I think this is pretty solid. Let's round off this review with the mouthfeel then. So mouthfeel wise, I'd say it's top end and mid-bodied, smooth carbonation, quite creamy but at the same time quite slick. In terms of IBUs, I think this is a fairly standard 25-30 IBU. It's not such a bitter beer, but you do get a wee bit of kind of spiciness and aromaticity lingering on the front corners of your palate for sure. But yeah, nice, juicy, fruity component to this one. I think the fruits lean towards the kind of tropical side of things and you get more of the softness. I'm getting more of the apricot and papayas and stuff like that from the Idaho 7 now that we're in the aftertaste. But yeah, good little bit of citrusy zestiness to it. Wee bit of tropical pungency as well on the fruity side of things, but soft juicy fruits are nicely done. The malt base, as we said, is quite smooth. A little bit of creaminess and a little bit of sweetness to it, but yeah, I would say overall it leans towards that more old school 2016 era type New England IPA, the more sort of bready, kind of bready leaning end of the spectrum rather than the big oily, chewy, sweet ones. But yeah, for a supermarket New England double IPA, you can't knock this. Very good value. So well done to both North and Alpha Delta for this. A solid beer. So we can leave it at that. This one is the Abstract Lens. 8% New England Hazy Imperial Double IPA, whatever you want to call it, from North Brewing Company in Leeds in Yorkshire and Alpha Delta Brewing Company from Newburn near Newcastle upon Tyne. Both breweries in England, both very well respected. So yeah, definitely cool to review this one for you. Thank you again for watching my beer reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comment section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are from both of these breweries, and I'm sure we will return to them at some point soon. But thank you for watching. I'll catch you guys on the next one. Slàinte, skål, and cheers.